and to fund the research and learning needed to scale what works. A fun fact, Iqbal previously served in the Indian Administrative Service and was in fact the topper of the 1996 batch, so he wears multiple hats. Sam, please share a few more words about the playbook with all of us.
Thanks, Kanika. Hi, everyone. JPAL is thrilled to announce our new AI Evidence Playbook, a practical resource written for policymakers, practitioners, and funders who are investing in or building AI-enabled programs. In this playbook, we sum up everything we know from randomized evaluations of programs that involve AI and from decades of evidence on human behavior and past technology for good efforts. Our goal is to support 3 decisions: where AI can best help improve lives, how to design AI-enabled programs so that they work in the real world, and how to evaluate them to avoid wasted resources and ensure that we share the full benefits of AI. This playbook was co-authored by Atala Abbasi, Iqbal Dhaliwal, Audrey Lorvo, and myself. And we're very grateful to all of the researchers who are working on rigorously evaluating AI-enabled programs. We will be updating the playbook regularly to capture the latest lessons from the field. I would now like to call upon our esteemed guests, Mr. Abhishek Singh, Maggie Johnson, and my co-authors Iqbal Dhaliwal, Global Executive Director of JPAL, and Audrey Lorvo, AI Policy Associate at JPAL, to join me on stage.
Maggie Johnson is the Global Head and Vice President of Google.org, the philanthropic arm of Google. Google.org is invested in unlocking the potential of AI for social good and is the anchor funder for JPAL's Project AI Evidence Initiative. A fun fact, before entering the philanthropy and technology sectors, Maggie was a professional musician. Mr. Abhishek Singh is the Additional Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MeitY, CEO of the IndiaAI Mission, and Director General of National Informatics Center, NIC. Overseeing India's AI and emerging technologies agenda, including cybersecurity and digital skilling, Mr. Abhishek Singh focuses on building Indian foundation models, scalable applications, trusted data sets, and a strong AI workforce, and has a key role in developing India's national 7-pillar whole-of-government AI strategy. A fun fact, Mr. Abhishek Singh has also been named Times 100 Most Influential People in AI 2025. You can now download the AI Evidence Playbook using the QR code on the screen.
Should I go? Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in this afternoon session. I do want to, call out one thing. When I was a civil servant here and we used to do conferences in Delhi, it used to be, there would be 7 or 8 speakers. There would be 30 or 40 participants. A big conference meant that there were 100 people. And then somehow it was on the participants to broadcast the messages to the rest of the world. So, I think I really want to commend Government of India for democratizing this particular AI summit and for making sure that everybody who is going to touch and feel AI in India, not just from Delhi, but from all parts of the country, are here. And I also want to say that, does it mean that it makes things difficult? Absolutely. Does it mean that it takes long lines to get us in? Absolutely. But if only 10% of the folks who are in this room, and yesterday I was here and there were so many of these college students and high school students, if only 10% of them turn into successful or even try their hand at being AI entrepreneurs, this is a huge success. So I really want to commend Government of India for doing that. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And in fact, thank you for doing this session, because I've been hearing a lot about this particular schedule of sessions from many stakeholders. And I would say that not only people in this room are watching it, but the sessions are being broadcast live and many people are joining. And yesterday, one session which I tuned in, because I could not walk into the room, it had 11,000 people watching online. So there's a lot of community outside, and I'm sure this session also must be reaching out to many people beyond this room as well.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to start, Abhishek, with you. When people join the civil service, they're like, maybe I will get one position where I can have a transformative impact. You managed to, or you were in this position for more than 4 years now. And 4 years ago, people hadn't even heard of AI on the street. That ChatGPT broke in front of you. and look where we are now. So you've seen a seminal transformation on how technology can improve governance, productivity, how it can become a part of our daily lives. So based on what you have seen, what is it that excites you most about the potential for AI? What are the things that you worry about? And if there's one lesson in all of this for other countries, what would that be? So 3 questions in one.
Thank you. So AI is pretty recent. In fact, as you rightly said, like most people, like of course, an old technology, 1956, the term was coined, but more people have become aware of AI since the ChatGPT moment. But if you look at not only 4 years, if I look at my entire career, I've spent almost 15 years in the tech sector, by being in the government and part of the digital government part. In fact, this is my 9th year in the same ministry. I was part of the digital, when we started the e-governance plan long back and the Digital India story, all major projects were associated with. So what I see is that AI is taking forward the narrative of digital public infrastructure. We built digital public infrastructure in India through the India stack, whether the Aadhaar, the UPI, or the DigiLocker, or the other associated eSanjeevani, Diksha projects, primarily to ensure that access to services is enabled for people in all languages and anywhere. What AI is doing is that it's adding a layer to it, making services accessible through all languages and through voice. So in a way, what it's doing is exponentially expanding the reach of AI. And in fact, literally or figuratively, I think of it as DPI raised to the power of AI. So that way, DPI's reach goes beyond. So if a farmer wants to access a service, instead of going to a browser or downloading an app or getting lost in the CAPTCHA, he could actually speak to on a toll-free number with a 2,000 rupee phone and ask कि मेरे खेत में ये बीमारी हुई है पौधे को मैं क्या करूं और where do I get seeds, where do I get fertilizers, how do I get agri advisories, and if you're able to enable voice enabled services for that, it's transformational for him because he becomes part of the knowledge economy. Similarly, in healthcare, people can access services. A lot of kids die of diarrhea still. But the solution, people are not aware, they don't have access to a specialist doctor. But if they can just pick up a 2,000 rupee phone, make a call to an AI doctor and ask in their mother tongue, what do I do, my child is having diarrhea, and they get the reply back, it will be enabling access to healthcare by using these tools. So this is what AI has the potential to do for that. What do I worry? Of course, becoming a long answer, but my worries is, of course, in ensuring that we are able to train our workforce to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming in the field of AI. Because in the short term, some low-value jobs, some entry-level coding jobs, debugging jobs, which can be done better by AI, those jobs will be adversely impacted. How do you ensure that these people are given the necessary skills so that they move up the value chain and start building AI transformational services, get to know about agentic AI, physical AI, edge AI, and get into making autonomous vehicle systems? So those jobs which will arise in the AI economy, one will need to ensure that we are able to skill and reskill people so that they are not adversely impacted. So that's the one major worry that I have.
Fantastic. So Maggie, at google.org, you have the vantage point of looking at the best of the world, not just India or one other country or the United States. So when you look at your portfolio of investments and the people who come through the door, what is it that strikes to you most? Is there something that strikes out and say, oh, wow, this is incredible, and I wish others would adopt this?
When I think about India, there's so many different possible examples. I think one that comes to mind is an organization called Karya, and they've done this really clever thing. And if you think of all of the big AI labs, they all need data, and one of the things that they really need is data in local languages. So what happened is what Karya did is they actually went to people in rural India and had them create the data sets that these models needed and then sold them to the labs. And what's really neat about that is that that's really good money, and that ended up going to those people who are creating those data sets. And it doesn't stop there. Anytime that we reuse those data sets in other models, they get royalties. So it keeps going, and the actual pay is way more than minimum wage in rural India. So it's a really great example of how you got this really clever idea, and thousands and thousands of people in India are benefiting from it, and they're actually scaling it to Ethiopia and Kenya. So I think that's one example that is just like so clever and so innovative, and it's helping so many people.
Fantastic. So just following up on that, the title of our thing is Vishwaguru, which means, a teacher for the rest of the world. So again, looking at the ecosystem of Indian AI applications and how the DPI and how we got there, what are the key lessons for some of the other countries who may be behind India in the development of AI and other applications? What does a country like India, or what did a country like India get right? When you go to some of the other countries, you say, guys, you should be doing this.
So you're flipping it for me?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I think that there's a lot of different applications that are happening elsewhere in the world that I think are starting to come into India. One is called a digital twin, and what that actually means is a virtual replica of a physical entity. So a really great example is a city. So you can create a model of a city that has, it's with sensors and AI and various other types of data. And if you have that model, you can actually do interventions in the model, like put a bridge there or change the traffic pattern and see what happens in the model so you can understand the ramifications in the real world. So one of the things that is happening in India now, it's starting to happen, but it's actually happening more elsewhere around the world, is this kind of city simulation. So one example is our research scientists created a system called Greenlight. And what this does is it takes real-time pedestrian and traffic data in a city, and then it actually modifies the traffic lights and how they operate based on that data. And what's happening is that, at least in India, we've got this running in several cities, is that the emissions are actually being decreased by 10%, and the number of full stops, which are actually really bad for the environment, are being decreased by 30%. So that's an example of something that we actually have implemented all around the world, but it's starting to make its way into India.
Fantastic. So I'm going to ask a question which is common to both of you. You see a lot of applications, AI applications come your way. Hopefully a lot of them succeed, but many of them don't make their way through. So Abhishek, from your point, and later Maggie, from your point, drawing around the experience, are there any common themes that you see between what these 11 applications got right, and therefore they not only are impactful but manage to scale? And here's another stack of examples where we thought, wow, these have high potential, but somehow they didn't really click. Is there any common theme that emerges in what succeeds and what fails?
I think as far as AI applications are concerned, it will be too early to call on what succeeds and what fails, because AI is just coming in. The solutions which are deployed, many of them are in pilot stage, the proof of concept stage, and when they are scaled up, then we'll have to be able to see, and after giving them a finite time for whether they're mature enough, whether they've reached to the last mile, whether deployment solutions have been solved out or not. Like, for example, AI to diagnose tuberculosis. It has worked very well in pilots and proof of concept, but when you deploy it in field across primary health centers, community health centers, and let it run for some time, train the whole people, then only time will come when you start evaluating it. But to answer your question, if you look at an example that we have from digital solutions, because digital government solutions have been there for a long time, AI is just a layer over that. So if you look at why digital government solutions succeed and fail, so I have found that only those solutions succeed which are, number one, solving a real world problem. Because very often in technology, the techies think that I have a solution, so I'll find a problem wherein I will retrofit the solution. That doesn't work. You have to think a problem from the first principles and try to think how you are going to make something different. That applies to all digital solutions, AI included. Number two, you have to think it from the point of view of the person who is accessing the solution. If it is a student or a farmer or a rural health worker, you have to design the thing from his perspective. Sometimes we design, like when we are doing Poshan Tracker for Anganwadi, we would thinking every Anganwadi will have a smartphone and iPhone. Doesn't work. They might have a 5,000 rupee phone. Does the solution work there? Does the solution work with intermittent connectivity, like what we did there, like asynchronous connectivity? So the application should work on a low-cost device in a low connectivity area, and the data should shrink whenever the connectivity gets in. So one will have to think of real-world challenges, design it, make it easy for citizens to address. Sometimes we put CAPTCHAs. Even literate people, the way we define literacy, they will get in rural areas, they'll get lost between the hashtags and the ands and the ampersand. So that's not, so we very often design things from our perspective. So we'll have to step into the shoes of the person who is using it, walk across the table, look at the perspective on the other side, and then we design whether it is a digital system or an AI system, it will work. AI is just a form of technology. It's not that something different from digital products and digital solutions.
Amazing. Maggie, how about you?
Well, I think I could actually answer this in a pretty tangible way because, Iqbal, you're aware of our accelerator program.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so we run a program, it's a Gen AI accelerator, and basically it's for organizations that are already using technology in some way, and these are nonprofits, and then we help them to actually bring Gen AI into their platforms. Great example of this is an organization called Tarjimli that has been for many years doing translation services for refugees and asylum seekers. And they've been doing this since 2017 and always on a technical platform. And they were part of a cohort just recently in one of our accelerators and brought Gen AI into their platform. And it just automatically increased the number of languages that they were able to translate, really reduced the response time, and made a huge difference in the service that they provided. So one of the things that we work really closely with JPAL on is they help evaluate the impact of these systems that go through our accelerator and help us to understand, well, first of all, how to improve our accelerator, but they help the organization understand how to actually go forward and whether or not what they're doing is working. And even more important for us is what could we be investing more in. So those are, that accelerator I think is a interesting answer to your question because I can tell you about the criteria we use for, actually picking.
Actually, that would be great because I was going to come to that later. Yes.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to do it now?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll do it now. Okay, so when we look at these applicants, and there are thousands of them that apply for our accelerators, I think the first one is scale. Typically what happens is that this is an organization that's already using technology, and if they're bringing Gen AI into it, it's usually for scale reasons. So we want to see what they're doing with the pilot and then how that will scale to a much larger audience. The second thing is open source. We really encourage open source, whether it's the code or the data if possible, or even the weights in the model that they might create. Sometimes the data is not even available for what they want to do, so that's another consideration as we're looking at the applications. And then a really important one is, how much are they thinking about the future? Do they have a vision for a year or 3 years out in what they're building and how to make it sustainable for the long term? So those are some of the, the attributes that we look for.
Excellent. So then let me actually talk about from the JPAL perspective. So we have partnered for a long time with Google.org on funding innovative solutions and piloting them and evaluating them. And as you mentioned, as Sam mentioned earlier, there is Project AI Evidence, which calls for really proposals for these innovative ideas. Last time in our first round we got 65. This year we got 96 proposals, and these are very well curated proposals. So kind of there are three core things that we look at, which we have found are good metrics of success. The first is technology, the second is impact, and the third is exactly what you said, building for scale. So the first is technology. I think it's really important for people, one of the things that we've seen as a metric of success is who's your technology partner? Are you trying to do it yourself? Does the technology partner have the ability to think through issues around what data is being used? Does the algorithm have any biases that need to be thought about? And so forth. So that's really important. But there's also the hardware piece of it, which sometimes people forget. When you go to the messiness of the real world, you have tablets which will fall on the ground 11 times in a day. In the lab, the tablet will be handled by one person. In a classroom, there are 40 kids who are kind of sharing this tablet. So one of the first things we look at is, have you thought about this? The second is impact, and like in the morning session, I talked a lot about basic impact, but I also talked to you about who benefits. I think sometimes when we look at average numbers and say, oh yeah, this particular technology improved the lives of the people that in the treatment group, sure, on an average it did. But if the benefit accrued disproportionately to the best performing students in the class, and the lower performing students in the class actually went down, then that particular technology is not what you probably had in mind, because the best performing kids were doing just fine. The third thing is cost, and Maggie alluded to this, like how are you going to scale this up if this is way too expensive? So extremely important to look at. And then the final thing I would say is, just to, building for the real world, understanding what rules and regulations need to be changed. In the morning, Ziad presented about silent heart attacks and how these handheld ECG devices can help in all of that. But what if rule number 37B of the Indian Medical Council Act says you cannot do that without a particular doctor having to look at the report? You cannot then go and be treated at the district hospital. It's really, really important. So I just wanted to make a plug here for a lot of you who are tech developers or thinking about AI applications that this is really, really important. Abhishek, going back to your perspective, what practical evidence would you give, advice would you give to your counterparts in state governments? You are in the central government, but a lot of action happens at the state level. For many years, you worked at the State Department. One thing we keep hearing is the health secretary saying, I'm inundated with 10 people trying to give me these health applications. 3 people who are saying, here's a mental health companion for you. 2 people who are saying, this is diagnosing heart attacks. How should even a policymaker start thinking through this muddle of applications that are coming at them?
See, for example, the example that you gave, healthcare. The health is a fairly regulated sector, and any solution, like whether it's a medicine or a treatment protocol or a procedure, is approved through a particular process. It's not that any vaccine or medicine can straight away be deployed. Similarly, if there is an AI tool which replaces a medical procedure, it has to go through the same level of checks that's normally practiced for other things. And here also, like when the Cure AI solution or the Nidan solution for the diagnosis of tuberculosis, it went through testing by the Central Drug Control Authority and also with ICMR. So they are the right regulators who kind of look into it and they certify that a solution meets the certain benchmarks. Like if it is diagnosing a disease, it should be equal to or better than what a human doctor or radiologist will be doing. So those solutions is not to be done at the state government. The approved solutions in a particular sector which is kind of endorsed by the regulators are to be scaled up. So once a solution is there or a class of solutions is there, then they can be deployed at population scale. One will have to think of how do I train my health personnel in using this solution, how do you use it, what are the do's, what are the don'ts, where are the mistakes that can happen. So those are the things that the health ministry should do in the states, coordinate with the central ministry and ensure that they do the rollout. The scaling up part should happen at the states. And the same will apply in agriculture, wherein suppose ICAR recommends that a particular AI way of diagnosing plant diseases or giving advisories is something that they have ratified, approved. Then scaling it up, ensuring that the same thing is available in all languages, across geographies, should be done by them. Education, the states have a greater say. AI tutors, for example, AI tutors are there. Are there AI tutors which are performing well? Are there AI tutors which are conforming to the learning levels of a particular board or a syllabus? So they can say that, yes, this is something that can be used in place of a regular teacher. So for every sector, there will be different solutions. What will be needed will be to Government of India and states working together in close coordination. The way we have architected India AI mission is that the common layers, the compute layer, the data set layer, the foundation model layer, this is being provided by Government of India, and all the applications, use cases on top of it can be built by the state governments and the private sector.
Great, wonderful. Maggie, you talked about Karya as one of the social enterprises or an example of what the world can learn from India. Are there other examples or other general themes that we should pick from India and that would be useful for the others to think about as they build their own stack of applications or they build their digital public infrastructure outside?
I think there are so many examples. I think one of the things that, going from what Abhishek was just saying, there's, a few guidelines I think that are always really important, especially in India. One is really to design with the community, to build for the community, and then design for scale. And what that means is really, building with the community means you actually should spend time in that community with, if it's an educational, application, with parents and teachers and students and actually understand the real problems. Because a lot of times as technologists, we assume we understand the problem and then build the wrong solution. That way you know that you're going to get it right. So I think that's really important. And then building for that community. So you want to build the solution that's going to solve that problem. But you also have to keep in mind the design principles that are relevant in that place. So as Iqbal just said, maybe the devices are a little outdated or the Wi-Fi is a little, spotty. These things have to work offline. You have to actually be mindful of the environment that they're operating in. So there's all those local considerations, and then at the same time, you want to be able to design for scale. And that really means understanding the attributes of this community and identify where else in the world it might make sense for that to actually be relevant. So those are some of the things that I would think of.
Fantastic. We have 2 minutes left, and I'm going to, those were the questions I had for this panel. But I do think that the previous panel on the labor market impacts was a hugely important issue, right? So I'm going to ask this again in sequence to both of you. Abhishek, you mentioned, that a lot of the jobs that might go away are entry-level data coding jobs. Now, I grant that, in countries like the US, maybe those were not the most well-paying jobs, but those were actually very aspirational jobs for a country like India, right? To be an entry-level data coding person. So how does a country like India transition? I think it's a huge advantage, right? That you have all these entry-level coders, you have all these people who have in business processing outsourced BPO sector. How do you help them transition into the AI sector and to leverage this so that this doesn't become a net job loser? And Maggie, after that, I would love to hear from you how at google.org you're thinking about augmenting versus automation, and how does one make sure that AI follows the direction where humans don't end up being on the wrong side of the stake here? Abhishek, let's start with you.
See, the entry-level jobs, again, if those who are in those jobs, if they get these coding agents, today we hear about Claude 5.2, we hear about Cursor, we hear GitHub Copilot, Codex, Servam has built their own coding engine. So there are a lot of coding engines that are coming in. So what happens is that when the coders, the entry-level coders, arm themselves with these coding agents, then they become much better advanced versions of themselves. And they acquire the skills and abilities to build agentic AI. Because any enterprise or organization which is trying to adopt AI, it's not that they just get a subscription of a ChatGPT or a Claude and they are done with it. It doesn't happen like that. You will have to integrate these coding agents and these tools with your legacy IT systems. So for example, whether it's a bank or a transportation network or a power company, they will have to integrate these agents into their systems. And these will be called as AI transformation services, or what Palantir calls forward deployment engineers. So the job roles of these will increase and they will be much higher paid than any other jobs compared to the coding level jobs. And India, especially with its talent expertise and the number of people who are acquiring these skills, we have become like the go-to hub for sourcing AI transformation engineers, forward deployment engineers. So what I feel is that there's a huge opportunity for the Indian IT industry to take the game up. Their outcome, their outputs, their ability to provide these services to multiple companies will go up. Similarly, we look at physical AI, the robotics, there's a whole area that is remaining to be explored. In 3 to 5 years, just like people have, especially in the Western countries, not in India immediately, every person who thinks of having a car will also think of having a robotic assistant. So those who can design these systems, those who can build these systems, there will be jobs for that. So jobs evolve, AI will not take away any jobs. People with AI skills will take away the jobs of people without AI skills.
I will be very quick. I completely agree. If I think of what is really the focus right now, it's around training these models, putting them into production, and having that infrastructure available. And what I think is going to happen is that all the applications that sit on top of that have not been developed yet. And those are the things that I think are going to be that growth opportunity for these software engineers that have the AI capabilities and use the tools that way.
Amazing. So I hope both of you are absolutely true. And on that note, please join me in thanking our brilliant panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, MeitY, and Iqbal for your thoughts. I would like to call upon Shobhini Mukherjee, Executive Director, JPAL South Asia, to felicitate the panelists. Thank you all. We'll now be taking a short break and starting the next session at 3:40 p.m. If you would like to learn more about JPAL and to collaborate with us, please scan the QR code on the two podiums here.